I want to thank everybody for coming out to this candidate workshop, more importantly, actually being willing to run for office. It's not easy. It's sort of a thankless chore. I'll thank you, but I don't know what my thanks is really worth, so it's really still kind of a thankless chore. But one of the things that we do, that we can do when we go out to be a candidate, is we get to give people an idea that usually they don't run across in their life, which is challenging the status quo. You know, right now, a lot of people in our country kind of, you know, they turn to government and say, hey, give me a solution, give me a solution, give me a solution. And when we look back at, you know, hundreds upon thousands of years of human history, typically government hasn't really created very good solutions. It's usually been the work of hard people and individuals and groups and entrepreneurs and, you know, small collectives that have created a lot of the great innovations in our society and have made a lot of the progress in terms of human equity, philosophy, writing, art. These are not things that are, you know, products of government, yet we continually see people say, hey, government, come solve our problems for us. And so we have an opportunity to, at least each election cycle, use the public stage to challenge that notion and provide a different solution and a different set of ideas. And all of you will have your own take on it, your own way of spinning it, your own thoughts, your own experiences. And in using those, you can connect to people. You know, some people might identify with Gene, while others will identify with Cody. Some will identify with Chuck. But when we do all of this together, you know, we start to make some progress. The Libertarian Party, you know, when it was first founded in 1972, was literally, I think, 8 people in an apartment. And, you know, it went from that to being the largest third party in the country. We generally have ballot access in all 50 states, if sometimes 1 or 2 slip between the cracks. The state of Oregon was one of the first states to be part of the Libertarian Party. We were one of the founding states. Sometime back in the 80s, several people who are still members of the party circulated all the petitions necessary to get us permanent ballot access. And that's why now it's as easy for the Libertarian Party to put our candidates on the ballot as filling out one form and signing it. And that was possible by the hard work of a lot of people who ran campaigns. They were candidates at time. They've done petitioning. And quite honestly, Oregon is a great state for us to be able to make progress. There's a lot of things that we can do. First off, the state is very friendly to third parties. You don't know what it's like in a lot of the other states probably, where, you know, someplace like Oklahoma, just to get a presidential ticket on the ballot, we have to collect 50,000 signatures in Oklahoma. You know, it's something along the lines of like 10% of the state voting population. So that's really hard to do, to actually get 10% of the entire people who vote in a whole state to get ballot access. You know, here we have it kind of easy. So let's you know, take advantage of that as best as we can, run as many good campaigns as we can, and also not forget that after this election year is over, we still have a lot of other tools at our disposal in the state. We have the initiative process, which is something that a lot of states don't have. We have the referendum process to take laws that we don't like and put them back to a public vote in order to repeal them. A lot of states don't allow their population that privilege. So I think that just kind of keep these things in your mind. You know, what are things that you can do after this election's over? And while you're out there, build your Rolodex, build your contacts, get involved with like the local chambers of commerce, meet people. The most important thing that you will get out of this campaign, if you use it right, are the political connections, the people you'll meet, and, you know, what's that? The networking aspect of it. Yeah. I mean, that is really your base of building your political sphere of influence. And you're going to find allies along the way. And these are people who, you know, when you actually are ready to go protest something at a city council meeting, you can call them up and say, hey, come down with me, because you already know who they are, they're on board with you, and you can start showing up in force. So I encourage you, you know, use this opportunity to do things like that. That's kind of my long-winded just ideas of things that have come to me over the years as I've run campaigns. And without any further ado, I'll get down to the kind of the boring stuff, which is there's some bureaucracy associated with being a candidate for office. The state has requirements of you. There's certain things you have to do, certain papers you have to file. And so I put together this presentation. This is really high level. I mean, you could get onto the Secretary of State's website and really dig into the nitty-gritties of a lot of things, but this is the bare minimum that you'll kind of need to hit the ground running. And so what are the minimum requirements? Kind of what are your legal requirements? Some of the basics of how campaign finance law works in Oregon. Very importantly, how the voter's guide works. We're one of the few states that does vote by mail, and a lot of Oregon voters, that voter's guide is the only thing that they're going to see in an entire election that makes their opinion of who they're going to vote for or what they're thinking about. And then we'll get to some other campaign basics. So the first step was to win the LPO primary so that you have a spot on the November ballot. If you're in this room, you've done that already. So your step one is done. So,
you know what? You don't know until you try, right?
It was hard.
No guts, no glory.
You know, there were some people involved in nine-way ties. So, the next thing, and this is the bare minimum of what you have to do in order to be on the ballot in November, aside from winning the LPO primary, is to fill out that SEL 110 form and get it back to me. The simple act of filling out that form and having it submitted to the Secretary of State's office is what will get you printed on that ballot come November. And I'm going to send the slides to the candidate email list so that you'll have these slides afterwards. So you'll have the hyperlinks to click and everything like that. But you fill out this entire form except for that little middle section. I'm going to borrow yours for a moment. This little spot here, that's the part you ignore. That's for me. And you kind of see the candidate nomination certificates. This is for the party officer. So that's this part you leave blank. So the other thing that you'll need to make a choice about if you're not a federal candidate is how much money you plan to spend on your election. If you're going to spend and receive less than $750, you can select the little bubble on that form that says, I plan to spend or receive less than $750. You don't have to go out and open a campaign account if you do that. You don't have to go open a bank account. You can pretty much just use your own personal bank account, take a few gifts from friends. You don't have to report them anywhere, and use that money to pay for some of the very basics of your campaign, but you don't have the whole campaign finance issues to deal with. If you're...
Is it a coincidence that that's the amount you'll need to get?
It's no coincidence. It's so that people who are just doing the bare minimum and not collecting signatures for their their pamphlet statement don't have to go through a giant hoops if that's all they do, right? So it wasn't coincidental. They designed it that way on purpose.
What costs $750?
If you want to have your statement for state rep or state senator printed in the voter's guide, instead of collecting signatures, you can spend $750.
Oh, that's exact. Okay.
Yeah, it's one or the other. And we'll get to that on the voter guide when we get there.
So once you've spent that $750 for that, if you don't collect the signatures, is that $750 cap that you were just talking about?
It's less.
Would that
Yeah,
apply?
it's less than or equal to, if you spend, if you expect more than 750. So if you're going to spend and receive more than $750, you have to open a dedicated bank account.
Now what happens if you elect to choose that, not less than $750, and then you should happen to go over that? Can you
We'll get to that in some future slides, but then the requirements hit you and you have to comply with them in X amount of days, and we'll get to that in a little while. So that's kind of your first choice that you'll need to make is, what's my budget on my campaign? Am I going to spend no money, collect some signatures, and that's the end of it? The 750 or less bubbles the easy choice. Then you don't have to open a bank account and all that. If you're going to do more than $750, you have to open a dedicated bank account for all of your campaign funds. And all the money you collect should go into that account. All the money you spend should come out of that account. And so then that's the second bubble on that form.
No, I was confused right away looking at this form because there seems to be a hole in here. The first box is I don't have a candidate committee and I don't expect to spend a bunch of money. The second box only says I have or will soon have a committee. So what if I'm in the situation of I don't want to have a committee, I don't even know what that would be for, but I do want to spend more money. There isn't actually
You have to create a committee, and there's a form for that.
Okay, you do have to create it.
Yeah, you'll have to create a committee. You'll have to register a committee if you're going to spend more than $750. And let's see. Maybe I'll go forward and back. Everyone's really keen on campaign finance, so we'll go forward. We'll skip forward, and then we'll hop back a slide. If you plan to spend more than $750, you have to file a Form 220, which creates a candidate committee. And that can be, friends of Bob who want Bob to be elected, PAC. You can basically name it whatever you want. They're not too particular about the name. Most people will put their candidate name in it as a candidate committee, so just your last name, like Friends of Kohler.
This is only for state office.
This is only for state office. Federal, ignore all this. You even ignore the bubbles on federal. If you're running for federal office, the state doesn't care that you exist. You have an entirely other big agency, which I'll get to, that will want to watch what you're doing. So if you're going to spend more than $750, you have to file that form to create a candidate committee. And then you have a choice. You need to figure out whether you're going to be your own treasurer of that committee, which you're allowed to be. If you want, you can serve as your own treasurer. Or you can find somebody who's willing to be a treasurer for you. Most candidates running smaller campaigns will just be their own treasurer because it's not that complicated and it's somewhat straightforward. But if you're running a larger campaign, I'd recommend getting a treasurer so you're not spending your time trying to deal with campaign finance law when you should really be out, shaking people's hands. So,
shaking babies and kissing hands.
Yeah. Now, here's where this is kind of where the rubber meets the road, is that if you intend to spend less than $3,000, you can file what's called a statement of limited contributions and expenditures. If you do that, you do not actually have to report all of your campaign finance transactions to the state, meaning that, again, the job's a little easier. You don't have to actually get an account on the campaign finance database and say, I spent this much for stamps, I collected this much from this person, I collected this much from that person, If you spend more than $3,000, you have to itemize every single expense of your campaign and report it to the state. If you spend less than or equal to $3,000, you can file a statement of limited contributions and expenditures. And then you don't have to do all that accounting to the state. Now the kicker is that if somehow you go over $3,000, you will immediately have to report all of the transactions you've ever done within 10 days of reaching that threshold. So it does not keep you from having to have record keeping. You're still going to need to keep records of how you spent money on your campaign. It's just you don't have to go and report it to the state. The minute you go past $3,000, you have to report everything that you've ever done. So if you somehow get an angel who comes out of the sky and offers to donate $10,000 to your campaign, make sure you had records of how you spent your money so you can actually accept his donation, because you're going to have to report everything. So does that make sense, kind of where the thresholds fall?
Well, my only concern is if you choose the $750 bubble or less, and then just out of the clear blue, the angel pops out of the sky and says, here's $10,000. How do you go about the process of changing your selection?
You have to file the form to create a committee. You have to report all the transactions, and you're going to need to get all that done within 10 days.
But you can do that.
You can do that. You can go back and do it. Correct.
Okay. All right.
But you're going to have to get it all done in 10 days.
Okay.
That's the main thing. Within 10 days of taking that check for all that money, you need to get all of that taken care of. So,
It's actually relatively easy.
yeah, it's not that hard, but it's an aggravation that if you're running a smaller scale campaign, might be worth avoiding. But, everyone has their own choice to make of their commitment level, what they're going to do, how much energy they're going to put in.
spend some of that $10,000 on somebody to do that.
Yeah, you can hire a treasurer.
So you can actually put somebody on payroll with that money?
Yes, but there are some limits to who you can put on your payroll in terms of they can't be immediate family and some other rules, and that would be that voluminous set of, I would be probably Joe Tabor down at the elevator if you can get him, please. Thank you.
So it can't be immediate family?
Can't be immediate family, and there's a few other restrictions. You'll want to look it up. But, you know, if you have like a best friend who's been your best friend since high school, you can hire them to be your treasurer. You know. They just get particular about blood relations and stuff. It's just the way the laws are written. One of the things that'll happen after you file that SEL 110 form, just kind of so it doesn't surprise you when it shows up, Secretary of State's going to send you a financial disclosure questionnaire where they're going to ask you things like, are you part owner in a business? Do you own more than X percentage of stock in a publicly traded company? All these sorts of things. That's a required that you're going to have to send back to them. They otherwise, you know, assess you a fine for non-compliance if you don't send that back to them. It comes in a nice, wonderful package marked, you know, friend with love from the government. As you can see my comment on here, they're just slightly less annoying than the TSA. But that's my color commentary on that one. I travel way too much for my job. And so be sure to fill that out and be expecting that one. You're going to get a lot of other things that come to you, campaign-wise, questionnaires, things like that, and that aren't from the state. But that one, keep an eye out for that one because it's really important. And since I'd skipped backwards to get that, I'm going to end up skipping ahead again for campaign finance transactions. Orastar is the state's campaign finance transaction reporting database. This is where you'll need to go to create an account for yourself if you actually need to start reporting transactions. And you can just go to OregonVotes.org, and there's like a little bubble on the bottom right hand that says, you know, Orastar. There'll be a register for this site, and you can get a registration. Once you get that registration in, they'll match you with your campaign committee and link it up so that you actually get connected to it, and then you can start reporting transactions for your campaign committee. They used to do lots of paperwork for campaign finance transactions. It was a big pain in the butt. This system's a lot easier. And one of the nice things is that if you get something wrong, it tells you right away so that you can go back and fix it. As opposed to before, when you were filing everything on paper, they'd come back and tell you 2 years later that you were wrong and here's your fine. So there's been a lot of improvements over the years. And I'm not going to go into detail today on all the ins and outs of how to file campaign finance transactions. I really do recommend, if you're running a big campaign, get a treasurer. Don't use your time as a candidate to do this.
So the www.website for Orastar,
Go to OregonVotes.org. And you'll see a little section. There's like 4 blocks of different groups of hyperlinks, and on the far right-hand side, it'll say Orastar, and there'll be like public search, login, and one of them says register. If you don't have an Orastar account already, follow the registration link. So then the question is, what about federal candidates? I've never run a federal campaign. Joe has. Who just arrived. That's Joe Tabor. He's run federal campaigns several times. The FEC.gov has all of the data that you would need for campaign finance for federal candidates. Fortunately, their threshold for reporting is quite generous. They don't care about you until you spend more than receive more than $5,000. So a lot of federal candidates never have to deal with them at all. No forms, no talking to them. You can just completely ignore them like they don't exist. And at some point in time, they have really good enforcement agents. So they'll end up finding your name somewhere and your address somewhere, and they'll send you an information packet that's just like, here's everything you need to know about FEC campaign finance. And that's the last you'll ever hear from them. you know, because if you spend less than $5,000, you don't have to do anything. But they will find you and they will send you an info packet. They're really good at that. I'm actually impressed at how good they are at tracking people down.
Now, do state candidates have to do anything regarding FEC?
Not at all.
Okay.
So if you're a state candidate, you only deal with the Secretary of State of Oregon. If you're a federal candidate, you only deal with the U.S. government. So there's no...
Something else I know is that the federal cap on single donations is $2,500 or $2,400, and there is no state cap. So if
Yeah.
someone writes a $1 million check here, can't get it.
Yes. An individual contribution limit is like $2,400. Like corporate limit is something like $10,000 for a federal campaign cap or something like that for a direct contribution as opposed to soft money. There's like a big eye chart on the Federal Election Commission's website that tells you exactly how much money you can take from any type of agency, whether it's an individual, a corporation, a PAC, a federal interest group, you know, all the different things. I don't know that eye chart off the top of my head. I hope I never have to learn that one, but it exists in the event that you're running for federal office, like 3 of our people in here are. So if you are doing a federal race, though, you should still get a campaign bank account if you're collecting contributions. That's just basically a different, separate individual account at a bank. Joe?
Yeah, I just want to say anything you do, checks you spend or everything, record it. Because first of all, in case someone suspects you spent more than $5,000, say, oh, no, I only spent $700. Also, if you ever do get a really generous person to give you $5,000 and you're all of a sudden in that other bracket, then you'll have everything all set up. You really need to have, not only keep a bank account, but keep your records too.
And you know, back to what Steve was saying about Oregon campaign finance laws, we have no limits on how much money you can give a campaign. Literally, an out-of-state donor could donate $1 billion to a campaign here in Oregon and it would be legal. So, I mean, we're one of the weird states. Most states have like limits and campaign finance regulations of that nature. We don't. Oregon has wide open, unlimited campaign contributions. So, you know, if for some reason somebody does send you a $10,000 check, you don't have to worry, you know, for a state race, you don't have to worry about it being too much money. Start planning on how you're going to use it effectively. So, and this gets to one place I think is very, very important and where you'll pick up more votes than anything else that you do is the Oregon Voters Pamphlet. Has everyone here been a voter in a full election cycle here in Oregon and has seen this lovely guide? So I don't need to explain what it is. Unless, I guess I'll explain real quick in case anyone's watching this on the web. Oregon's a vote by mail only state, and everybody in the state of Oregon gets a copy of this guide from the Secretary of State. And it is basically a listing of every candidate who's on your ballot, as well as a statement of what they believe, why they think they should be elected to office, et cetera, as well as all the ballot measures and the tax measures and everything like that. And so it's very important to be in this booklet, and I can just tell you, if you do nothing in a campaign as a Libertarian candidate other than put your name on the ballot and stick your statement in this guide, you'll get 3% or so in your race. You know, and that's if you literally sat home on your butt and watched television all day. You will get 3% just from showing up and being in this guide. If you aren't in this guide, you'll probably get less than 1. So I mean, the exposure there is already like triple your vote total just by being seen as credible by being in this guide. And even if you're running an incredibly active campaign, you still need to be in this guide because half of the people out there who are voting haven't even watched a single television commercial, and this will be the only tool they use to decide who to vote for, aside from maybe a little tiny bit of osmosis. And I kind of got ahead of my slides. The other very important reason to be in this guide is that people do read it. I mean, I can't tell you, when I've run campaigns, the minute this guide hits the shelf and it's in everyone's hands, the web hits on the websites go way up because people read the statement and then they see the web link and they're like, oh, I want to even find out more about this guy. and they hit the website. I mean, they are reading it. And so the ideas and the thoughts and the proposals that you put in your statement get read by people. So make it powerful, make it concise. You know, you don't want it to be extremely rambling. We can probably talk on the Gmail group and look at a lot of past voter statements that have been effective or well received. Joe, even at one point in time, put together a project to accumulate all of the statements that have ever been put in by Libertarian candidates that he could get his hands on. So he's got an archive that he can actually, share with people. So if you want to see a lot of past statements, we'll get that, I'll work with Joe to get that actually out onto the candidate list so that you've got a huge base of reference material to work from. And even if they don't vote for you, it's another contact with them. It gives them another chance. Every single time a person hears a message, it kind of chips away at the armor a little bit. Sometimes it takes a lot of contact before somebody gives up, their faith in one idea and switches to another. So this is why, as candidates, it's very important to be in this guide. And so how do you get in the guide? You can do it by petition or by paying a fee. I like the petition route personally because it's a lot cheaper. If you're going to be a candidate and you're campaigning anyway, it's a great way to meet people. I mean, you're out there collecting signatures, but you're meeting people too. That's kind of what you're supposed to be doing as a candidate. And so some of the, not really relevant entirely, but I left it on the list. President and vice president, it's either $3,500 each for each of those two offices. So it's like, for our presidential ticket, it's going to be $7,000 to put them in the guide. Or getting 500 signatures. So, you kind of do the math on that. The signatures are worth about $7 each. You can tend to collect about 15 to 20 an hour. So it's a lot cheaper, from a manpower perspective to gather signatures than pay the fees. Joe?
And I just wanted to point one thing out on this form that you will be asking people to sign. One of the things that it is it's a petition, and where I started having trouble getting signatures was when I actually started reading it. It's the people who sign it. According to this front page, it's text in all kinds of various different sizes. It looks just kind of like a form, a government form, but it actually has something there for people to sign on that they agree with you.
Yes.
And I thought, I said some things in my voters pamphlet statement that I really don't know if all these people signing would totally agree with me on, but they wanted me to be a choice. So you might want to just think about how you word that. One way, either as, you want this guy on the ballot as a choice, or you want this, but that has to be what the final thing is. It has to be in your voters pamphlet statement. What you give them is exactly, and what you put on your things is exactly what's going to be in your voter statement, word for word, character for character, period for period. So, so anyway, you'll be asking people to agree, but you might want to either soften your message, or you might want to put a hard-hitting message on there, but put something on there too that's kind of a disclaimer.
Going down the list here, most people are in this lower category and below. United States Representative, $2,500 or 300 verified signatures. I don't know why the signature count for that is so low, and they made it so easy when they made, the other one above it just so hard. But it's, I'm not gonna look a gift horse in the mouth. But at 300 signatures compared to $2,500, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna stand outside the library for one weekend. So statewide offices, that's for like a governor, attorney general, stuff like that. That's 500 signatures or $3,000. And most of the people in this room are in the state senator or representative area. That's $750 or 200 signatures. That's that one. That's more of a toss-up. I personally would gather the signatures though, because you get a chance to meet your neighbors. In fact, this is where we'll go to, where do you gather these signatures? I recommend trying to gather all of them in maybe only 1 or 2 counties, but they don't have to come from your district. So you don't have to actually do it in your district. That's the most hilarious thing. Yeah, the signatures do not have to come from your district. They just have to come from voters in Oregon.
Really?
Yes.
So,
That was my biggest thing, because most of my followings.
You get one column in the voter guide. It's like about...
so if you want
Interesting. Very
Going back, you can get the signatures from any registered voters in Oregon. I found that when I was running for governor, it worked really well for me going door to door in my own neighborhood. I could get about 15 signatures per hour that way, but they were very high quality because I was going to actual doors of residences of people who owned their homes and had lived there for many years. And like about 19 out of 20 of them were good and accepted by the county elections office. So only about 1 out of 20 turned up bad when I went door to door. When you stand outside a library, you get closer to 50% are good. So as a candidate, it's a lot easier too going door to door because it's a novelty. You show up at somebody's door saying, hey, I'm your neighbor, I'm running for office. They're immediately interested in what you have to say, as opposed to the people in the library like, oh my God, is this person from Amway? I don't want to see them. No, don't make eye contact, don't make eye contact. Oh God, I made eye contact, he's going to talk to me, you know. So just so you have an idea of some of the things that are a little easier when you're a candidate going door to door is great. Joe?
Yeah, I wanted to point out this is not so much true for the federal races, but for the state rep and state senate races, the best possible thing you can do is go door to door. And I did that 3 times, and I met a lot of neighbors, and it's a blast. You know, it's so you'll probably get enough signatures going door to door. I typically would knock on 100 or 200 in an afternoon.
The great part about going door to door with collecting these is you have an excuse to talk to them. So it's great. Because normally, you know, when you're just canvassing for votes, it's like, hi, I'm meeting people, but this is, hi, I'm meeting people and I need your help. A lot of human beings, strangely enough, are naturally helpful. You know, you wouldn't think it, you know, it's like, you don't think they are, but they are. When you really reach out to them and say, hey, I need your help, most people have a very positive attitude about that.
going along with what Wes just said, every time I initiate a conversation with someone, I say, I need your help. And automatically, I mean, and I don't want to give away all my secrets, but it works great with women. You know, because women are more naturally helpful than men. And this is scientific. It's not me and my anecdotal evidence. But it's true. Just ask for help.
So, you know, just kind of going door to door as a candidate is great. The really good thing about going door to door in your own neighborhood is you will pick up volunteers. You will run about every maybe 200th door that you knock on, you're going to run across somebody who's as insane as you are. And they will actually want to work on your campaign and help you. Because, you know, they've been sitting in their house thinking, my God, this entire world is so screwed up and I'm all alone and nobody thinks the way I do. And the minute they meet you, it's like, hey, I'm not alone in the universe. This is cool. Let's go. I'm serious. When I ran for House District 39, I picked up 4 volunteers just going door to door, meeting people. You know, those are the people that ended up helping me work on my campaign. So, great way to get signatures. Go door to door. The other thing is I can get you a list, you know, for all of your House and Senate districts of people who are actually libertarians, registered libertarians in your district. You can track them down on Facebook, you know, use Google to hunt down their email address. You just stalk them and you eventually find them somewhere if they're in any way, shape, or form engaged in politics. Hop on top of them, email them, reach out, make contact. Honestly, canvassing is a great way to get signatures when you're the candidate. It doesn't work as well for volunteers. You know, when you show up at a doorstep, oh, I'm volunteering for so-and-so, it's like, I don't want to talk to you. But when you're the candidate, it's like, oh, this is novel and interesting. You know, my anecdotal experience with that is I was, Ron Bream, who's a member of the party, went canvassing with me one weekend, getting signatures when I was running for governor. And I literally collected 3 times more signatures than him in the same exact amount of time.
Yeah. The way to make that work is you send the volunteer on the opposite side of the street you're on, and then all you do is say, well, if you want to talk to Wes or Jim or whatever, he's right over there.
That helps.
And that helps right there. They might just sign, say, oh, okay, or they might want to see him, one or the other. But that just like that, that'll help.
The other thing is have business cards. If you don't have business cards, get some free ones from Vistaprint. I didn't put that on the slide, but vistaprint.com, they'll like send you 250 business cards for free, and they'll just print a little ad for themselves on the back. The importance of having the business card about your campaign with you is because you will run into people who are very chatty, okay? And you have to escape at some point. It's really nice that they're chatty, but if it's obvious that they're not going to volunteer for your campaign and they're just kind of talking you up, you got to get more signatures. So what you do is you give them the business card, which has your email on it, everything like that, and say, hey, feel free to email me, love to talk to you some more, but I've got to get these signatures before such and such date, so I got to get moving for right now, but love to talk to you, right? That way you kind of can pull the hook on yourself and get on to the next house. So, and the rare person who actually, after you give them your business card, actually chats you back or actually reaches back out to you, they're going to end up volunteering for your campaign. Most of them you'll never hear from again. They'll vote for you, maybe, but you'll never hear from them again. The person who actually uses your card, they typically become a volunteer. So how do you get in the voter statement? Aside from knowing that it's going to either cost you money or signatures, there's a form, an SEL 430. You need to file that with the Secretary of State before you start collecting signatures. They'll look at your statement that you attached to it. They'll make sure that it meets the word count, some things like that. And then they'll approve you to circulate it, which means they'll give you a circulation number to write on your petition forms. And at that point, you can go out and start collecting signatures. Once you've collected enough signatures, you believe, you take them to the county clerk's office, where the county elections office people will actually examine each signature. They will mark off all the bad ones, accept all the good ones, and you'll get a nice little cover letter with a county seal on it that says exactly how many of the signatures they have certified as a genuine and acceptable. The minute you get past the threshold, you're done. They've already pre-certified them when you get them from the county. So if you drop off 380 with the county, comes back that 210 are good, you only need 200 signatures, you can stop collecting signatures there because those are certified signatures once the county's already processed them.
Do not remove the staples or anything.
Yes, do not remove the staples. Keep that all stapled together. And I often will drive to Salem to drop off my ballot pamphlet statement. I will go in there with my photos, my form, my big stack of signatures and say, here it is, get an accepted thing right there on the spot. You have to have this done by August 28th. So you got, if you're going to do signatures, you got about 7 weeks. Joe?
Yeah, the signature process has to be complete by the 28th. But is there another date that needs to be done earlier to actually submit your 430? It's still the 28th. Okay.
I mean, if you're going to do it by fee, you can do it on the 28th. You can do the form, the fee, the photos, everything, one shot, drive to Salem, here you go. If you're going to pay the fee, it's that easy. You can wait till the last day, no problem, just as long as your car doesn't break down. But, they are adamant that it must be there by 5 p.m.
Mm-hmm. So you file this form with your statement
Yeah.
with the state. Then they mail you back that you're okay to go and circulate your petitions.
Yes.
Then you submit your petitions not to the state but to your county.
You bring them to your county office.
The county you reside in?
Yeah, whatever county the signatures are from. And that's the part where it's really helpful to gather them all from one or only two counties.
Okay.
And you show up to the county office and say, hey, here's my signatures. Some of them have really sharp, really quick turnarounds. Like Clackamas County was able to get them back to me in 24 hours. Beaverton was saying 4 days, but they did it for me in 2. You can call them at any given time and they'll kind of give you an estimate of how long it's taking them. They'll know how big their queue is. But don't run it down to the wire. Don't expect that you're going to show up on the 27th with 500 signatures and they're all going to be processed that same day. Because everybody and their cousin might have a big stack of stuff for them. And it's all first in, first out. So get them in early. The easiest way is to collect them in your own neighborhood because they're all going to be from the same county.
So they don't do a mix and match thing?
You can do
50 signatures.
Oh, you can do a mix and match thing, but like you're going to have to take them to the 2 different county offices. So if Clackamas says,
No, I mean money and signatures.
no, they don't do mix and match of money and signatures. But if you like have 80 that are good from Clackamas and 120 that are good from Washington, that counts as 200 signatures. So
Does the county of residence of the person signing the petition matter? So if you get them all in Washington
Yes.
County and you've got 40 people who live in Multnomah, do you have to submit it to
all
both?
signatures have to go on a sheet for that county. So when you're circulating signatures
Where they live.
for where they live,
So if you're
As
in a
the
public
voter.
place,
yeah.
Ask people
So you
what
need to find out
county
where
they
You have to
live.
ask about what county they live in. So like if you hit Saturday Market, you're going to get
all
people
different.
who are from Washington State who will try to sign your Washington County signature sheet and thus will be stricken as not valid. You'll kind of notice it by their area code when they write their address down, you know, because it starts with a 9 and an 8. That doesn't look like Oregon.
So I've signed petitions and nobody asked me what county I live in.
They should have been. Because on the signature sheets, there's usually a line for county.
Oh, yeah.
And they'll want people from Clackamas to sign the Clackamas one, et cetera. The statewide petitions are a little different. But the candidate signatures all have to come from, you need to group them by county, and the people have to sign the right county list. As I said, much easier if you do just hit door to door in your own neighborhood. And one of the nice things is that sometimes you just like get a complete, wonderful score when you're wandering down the neighborhood. I hit a house one time and got 8 signatures at one house because they were having a party and like all 4 of their neighbors were there. So, I mean, it's like, 8 completely valid signatures on one door knock. I was out in 2 minutes, Yeah, I'm not telling the rest of that story. Not on camera.
Family signing as the registered voters doesn't hamper
Yeah,
signature.
nope. You can have a whole family sign so long as they're all registered. And if only one of them's bad, they'll only knock off the one that's bad. So, if you somehow manage to come across like a Mormon compound with 90 people in it, you're good. So, Mormons are generally very libertarian friendly. So, you usually get some good response there. Yeah.
There's one key one and then the rest follow.
Yeah. So I got to kind of get there. You have to bring them to the appropriate county for verification. Verification process can take multiple days. At least finish this all like a week prior, really. I mean, and I gave you a bunch of other tips already. And here's kind of the resources that you should really join in order to get yourself plugged in with everybody else. We have a Facebook page for Libertarian Party of Oregon. This is just basically a page for anyone who's a libertarian in Oregon. We don't check. I mean, if you pretty much ask to join, we just let you in. We're not very particular. The candidate Google group, some of you have already gotten invites from me. Some of you, I don't have your email addresses, so I haven't invited you yet. Make sure you email me if you're not on this group. This is a mailing list group, so if you reply to it, it sends it to everybody. This is a great place to exchange important information, tips, ideas, you name it. Good way to get all that information. And if you join this group, you will get a copy of these slides. All right. Our meetup group. Some of you probably found this via our meetup group. You can post your own meetups there. So as soon as you start having any type of candidate events, post them on the meetup group. That's a good way to keep, advertise that something's going on. Cross-post it if you can to anything else. I kind of gave a little bit of a purpose of a third-party campaign in my intro. You will get a lot of candidate questionnaires that come in the mail. The big ones that you definitely do not want to ignore, the League of Women Voters, they are well published. Get your stuff in there. The other thing that you definitely won't want to ignore is the Project Vote Smart. They have this political courage test where they ask a lot of extremely hard questions. And if you're actually willing to answer them in a no-nonsense way, they give you a political courage score in addition to publishing all of your stuff. A lot of people will actually use that as like a filtering factor for whether or not they will or will not vote for somebody. Some really clued in, you know, it's a small percentage of the voters, you know, a couple percent, but they will really use that as kind of a filter. Like if this person didn't answer their survey or was mealy-mouthed or whatnot and we want to deal with them, I strike them off my list of people I'm even considering. So they use it as a who not to vote for filter. So you need to have your answers there so they don't just knock you off for not answering. One of the nice things about state rep races and state senate races is it's really easy to get into the debates. Nobody cares about those races, and so the local media people, newspapers, radios, or whatever, they're always desperate to try to make these events more interesting. So they actually invite third-party candidates. When you run for governor, they don't want you spoiling it for anyone, getting in there, throwing out any crazy ideas like, you know, oh, we might be bankrupt or something. That's not suitable or acceptable for that level of consumption. But the local media, they're all for it. So they're going to invite you. You won't have to fight too hard. Just make it known that you exist. You will get invited to those debates and forums. Yeah?
To whom do you make it known? Is there some forum where you send out a
Well,
notice?
a lot of them will just pull the Secretary of State's database. So when you file that, that ends up being the trigger for a lot of people. But it doesn't hurt to maybe send a press release to all of your local media. Like if you're, you know, like when I'm in District 39, it's basically Canby in Oregon City. Make a small little press release, you know, announcing that you exist, that you're running a candidacy, blah, 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 contact info and whatnot. Send it to those local newspapers and the little local radio stations. I mean, that's enough. They don't see that every day, so they notice it when it comes in, and they will invite you to their debates and forums. It's really easy to get into the debates and forums for all of the regular state offices. What's that?
They'll also get you on the morning show?
Yeah, they'll get you on the morning show. I have really good relationship with Tom Hartman if you want to go on left-wing radio. I can get you on that program.
I'm actually going on Carl Wolfson on Tuesday.
Yeah. Joe?
A long time ago, as lobbying director of this party, I got to debate with the Malala police chief on the medical marijuana, the marijuana recrim back in '97. I was on the morning show on Channel 12 and got home an hour later and 6 people called in and they were all on my side.
Yeah.
It was good, felt good.
And that takes us to another campaign basic that is very important, which is the use of media, for which I'm going to end up turning the floor over to Mr. Jingosian, who's out there preparing. And we'll probably take a short break before he starts, just so people can bio break, get drinks and everything. Joe?
Just one thing, I also highly recommend signs if that hasn't been talked about, yard signs. Gives you something to talk about. Some people will even ask you when you're knocking door to door, do you have any signs I could put up on my yard? And I don't know how many people told me when I did that when I was running. I only did this in my state rep races, but I don't know how many people told me, Joe, I saw your signs.
There's actually a national PAC that formed recently under Wes Benedict, he's out of Texas and Louisiana. Well, he was originally Texas, then went to DC and then moved back home to Louisiana. But he's got a super PAC that is for all things libertarian. He can help you get signs at a big discount because he's buying them in bulk and he's got the relationships and things like that. And they will, to a degree, donate signs to candidates who are running active campaigns. The only stipulation is that, and I don't consider this a downside, the word libertarian has to be very prominent on it. Yeah. He's very much of the mind that a political party sign should actually disclose who you're associated with. And so none of these stupid lawn signs that you don't know whether the guy's a Republican or a Democrat or a Bull Moose Party or whatever, it will have a very prominent libertarian on it, but he will help you out.